How you doing? All right. Well, thank you. A lot of things have changed since I stood on this stage in 2014. That year, if you were here, the entire talk was Detroit. We were in bankruptcy, highest unemployment rate in the country, hopeless blight. Little bit different this year. But when we started, you know what happened. 40,000 vacant houses. New York Times said it was hopeless. Highest unemployment rate in the country. And when I went to recruit jobs, the experts said we're wasting our time. Well, we still have a couple problems. And we have one that is a ticking bomb that really does threaten everything else that we're doing. And that's our property tax system. Okay? Everybody who owns a house or has a business in Detroit, you know what I'm talking about. For more than 50 years, the property tax system has two defining characteristics. Light's rewarded, building is punished. Light's rewarded, building is punished. We've done it for 50 years, and it's how we got lots of blight and not many buildings. We tax buildings, but there's a secret. We don't tax blight. We have an exemption built into the law. And so you look at the Hudson's Motor Plant, which known as Cadillac Stamping, was in private hands since 1986 and set vacant. Why do they pay taxes and keep it vacant for all those years? Or Michigan Central, vacant for 30 years. Continental Motors, vacant for 25 years, and the owners pay the taxes. And the Packard plant been closed for 60 years. The owners owned it and paid the taxes for 55 years. And the reason is we don't tax blight. We only tax building. Seems impossible, right? It's got to be crazy. It can't be true. Here's a house, just a standard neighborhood. I picked it out at random on the internet. $185,000 for a lot in the neighborhood in Farmington Hills, $12 a square foot. There's no $185,000 lots in Detroit. You could have all the land you want at $500 a lot. And this is the problem that I'm facing. We have a tax system that has zero tax on land. And what are you going to do if you don't change that? And the average bill on a vacant lot in Detroit, $30 a year. That's what you pay. If you want a bargain, pretty good one. So, how many vacant lots in the city of Detroit are privately owned, which means they send in their $30 every single year, because if they didn't, the treasurer would foreclose. How many of these vacant lots do you think somebody is paying $30 year in and year out? 30,000 lots. Why do they do it? I'll tell you, they're 30,000 cheap lottery tickets. For $30 a year, I can hope that the Illiches or some development or something is going to go give me a check for a big payday. And it's worth $30 a year. I don't care about the impact on the neighborhood. And this is what is driving me nuts. And I'll just give you just one owner's story. Here's one owner who owns 261 lots, pays his $30 every year. See those red dots? He's figured out how to spread them around any place somebody might want to develop. He owns 22 acres. He pays a total of $6,500. He's actually sophisticated. He's closer to $25 a lot. I'm not sure how he did it, but he's figured this out. Okay? And he gets a large payday, and he's landed some large paydays. But what does that leave in the city of Detroit? Who would design a system this crazy? So in 2021, one of the leaders at Wayne State looked at it and said, this is crazy. You guys need to increase the taxes on the land and cut the taxes on the buildings. So we said we weren't sure about that, so we commissioned this big study, the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy, phenomenal report. You know what they said? You guys need to increase the taxes on the land and cut the taxes on the buildings. You probably all figured that out by now, right? So we're talking about changing a tax structure that's been in place for 50 years. But here's my plan. It's really simple. Cut taxes on buildings, 30%, triple the taxes on the land. That's it. Whole thing. Cut the taxes on the buildings, 30%, triple the taxes on the land. So what does this mean? This is going to be, if we can do this, the biggest building of wealth of Detroiters in history. And I'll show you why. If your house is worth $50,000, you're going to have a savings of about $463. Basically, whatever you have overall, your tax bill is going to be cut by about 25%. So $50,000 house, you're going to save $463 a year. If you got a $100,000 house, you're going to save $925 a year. If you get a $200,000 house as a homeowner, you're going to save nearly $2,000 a year off of this proposal. Now, all it does is make you competitive with Ann Arbor and Farmington, but it's a lot better than you have today. Who can possibly be against this, right? Well, let me tell you. First one, speculators in the vacant lots. They aren't going to be the maddest. The owners of the vacant commercial buildings. You want to talk about the people who are screwing over the city of Detroit? I'm going to show you who they are. Third, the owner of the scrap yards and the auto salvage yards. Because remember, what do? We today tax building. And these scrap yards and auto salvage yards are spread across the city. That's a great discount. We got no land tax. You can spread as far as you want. And owners of parking lots. And the downtown parking lot owners are going to get hit hard because, no, I'm not trying to be punitive, but I'm supposed to clap. I'm just telling you the truth. I don't have anything against them. They've kept us going. All right, so let me tell you the guys I do have something against. And it's these guys, the owners of the elected commercial and industrial buildings. And you're going to be as mad as I am in about 5 minutes. We've got nearly 1,000 abandoned commercial buildings that the owners are paying the taxes on. I want you to think about that. A vacant building in Detroit that you pay the taxes on and write the check year after year, even though you don't put a cent into it and you don't even visit it. Why do they write the checks on the 1,000 vacant buildings? And they've been abandoned for an average of 20 years. These guys are writing checks year in and year out for 20 years. Who has that kind of money? Well, in Detroit, pretty much everybody does. Because why do they do it? If you let your building deteriorate, state law requires the assessor to evaluate it when it's not usable. They write the building down to zero, which means if you let your building go, the assessor has to make it zero. Now, once the building's zero, what are you taxed on? Your land's zero. The greatest deal in the world is to let the building decline. And so, it's 1,000 cheap lottery tickets. Now, we're sitting here talking in the abstract. I want you to see what's going on. And you think this just started? This is State Senator Coleman Young, his first campaign for mayor in 1973. And here's what he said on the trail. Right now, Detroit's tax structure rewards people who let their properties run down and penalizes those who build it up. Crazy, isn't it? 50 years ago. It isn't any different, but we haven't solved the problem. What I'm going to try to do this year is solve the problem. We know what the problem is. So, the reason that these buildings sat vacant for 25, 30, 65 years, they were taxed next to nothing. The buildings were declared unusable. They got taxed on the underlying land. We had to stare at this all these years because our own tax structure incentivized it. If you spent a fortune and demolished these buildings, your tax would be identical because you wouldn't be taxed on the land anyway. Who would demolish a building? So, here's the 1,000, though, are not big industrial buildings. They are buildings that are in neighborhoods that are coming back now. So before this apartment building went vacant about 10 years ago, its taxes were $30,000 a year. Now look at those houses next door to it. We thought we'd go talk to the neighbors. We went down and talked to the lady who lived 2 doors down to see how she felt about being next to this thing for 10 years. She had some opinions about this. But here's the interesting thing. The taxes were $30,000 a year, okay? And the Patterson family's been there 30 years. They love their house. They've raised generations in this house. And they remember when that apartment building was full. They can't believe that when it cleared out, the city just let it sit there and get worse. But in 2013, it deteriorated. So you know what we did? We cut the taxes from $30,000 to $9,000. We rewarded them for neglecting their building. But we can do better than that. So in 2018, we cut it again. Since 2018, this building owner is paying $250 a year. We made the mistake of telling LaTanya Patterson her family's paying triple for the little house 2 doors down. Because why? In Detroit, blight is rewarded and building is punished. And so, in a little bit more graphic language than this, LaTanya Patterson said, this is the kind of thing that makes you want to move out of Detroit. Can you blame her? Okay? So we went and saw Marguerite Wynn, who's been in her house for 35 years. This is the story of Detroiters. They stay in these houses. They love them. Look how beautiful she has kept up her house. But for the last 2 decades, she's been next to this commercial building. That's 2009, before the Great Recession. Look what she's looking at. Look how beautiful her house is. 2011, Google Maps is a great thing. They got all these little pictures. 2011, middle of the recession. Look how beautiful she's maintained her house. This is the pride that Detroiters have in their neighborhoods, and there's a place next door. But by 2018, her house is beautiful. We've cut the taxes to $410 a year. We rewarded this owner from depressing this neighborhood for all those years. And all she wants to know is, I'm paying twice as much for my house than that big commercial building is taking. And even if you don't live next to the building, I'm telling you, beautiful neighborhoods are spreading across the city. Don't pay attention what the media says, downtown, midtown, not the neighborhoods. Go off the freeway and drive through these neighborhoods. You cannot believe the number of block clubs and neighborhoods that are beautiful. But no matter what you do on your block, if somebody comes to visit you and they drive down Grand River and they pass 3 abandoned buildings before they turn on your street, what are they saying about you? And would anybody in the suburbs tolerate this? So I could do these all day. Vicki Foster, 50 years in the shadow of that 5-story abandoned apartment. It pays $330 a year. She's kept her house and she's paying triple that. And so we thought, what if instead of spending all these millions of dollars to undo the damage our tax system causes, what if we actually fix the tax system? Right? No. Because until we get these buildings rehabbed or gone, we aren't going to give these folks real hope. And is tripling the tax on these properties a bad thing to do? I can tell you I got 3 votes for it already when we go to the ballot. We have close to the most parking in a downtown area in America. Why? Because we subsidize the blight and we tax the building. These folks are going to go up a lot. And I'm going to sit with them, and I'm going to say one thing to them. If you want to keep parking cars, your taxes are going to go up. But if you want to take your parking lot and develop it, you got a 30% tax cut on that building. You're going to have a lot of developers who want to come in and build on your site. What is your future? And here's why I think the land value tax is going to benefit everybody. You do a 30% cut in taxes on buildings, we will get buildings. What the land value tax does, remember I showed you, it takes it down to the middle. And so if we do the new plan under the land value tax, the payment in Farmington Hills is still going to be $1,480, but in Detroit, it's now going to be $1,510, a $30 a month difference. Haven't gotten all the way there to Farmington. Given the land price and the deal, you probably get there. But you can see what this does. You'll see homes being built on vacant lots in the city again because we'll be incentivizing them to do that. And you can see it's going to be better to be here than in Ferndale or Warren, not as good as Livonia and Troy, but we're in the mix, which is where I'd like to be. So no matter what your business is, whether you own a coffee shop or a warehouse, whatever you own in general, you can assume that when you cut the taxes 30% and your land taxes tripled, a few things. Big buildings are going to get big cuts because we're cutting the buildings, right? Neighborhood businesses get cuts. And here's the interesting thing. When I showed you the land tax is zero, the land tax is close to zero pretty much every place except out of downtown, midtown, and Corktown. Those land values have come up. But every place else, it's very small. So any neighborhood business, chances are excellent that the land tax won't increase very much. The building tax will be a cut, which means neighborhood development is what's going to be incentivized to this. The downside is businesses with excess land are going to be taxed more. If you've got parking that you need for your grocery store, we're going to give you the discount to the 60 mils. But if you've got extra land, it's going to be taxed. And so businesses that have a lot of extra land, those taxes are going to go up. We want to give you 3 years. Maybe you expand your business. Maybe you sell it to a developer. And downtown businesses are going to get hit somewhat harder because the downtown values are higher and they're going to triple. If you got a tall building downtown, you're a big winner. If you got a medium building downtown, you're probably a medium winner. If you got a small building downtown, you could get a significant increase. We don't want that to affect people unfairly. So we're going to have work groups that we're going to work through this together. And other cities, as far as we're concerned, we're happy if other cities want to participate or not. It can be a Detroit-only bill, or you can let any city opt in. Whatever the legislature prefers is fine with us. You won't find that many cities it works in because you really need cities where they deindustrialized and the land value collapsed. But from my standpoint, if River Rouge wants to do this, if Flint wants to do this, it's fine with me. So however they do it, it can apply. You won't find that most other cities this works for. But all I can say to you is this. For 50 years, nobody's been willing to take on our destructive property tax system. We can give these homeowners $500 to $2,000 a year in savings. Think about that in wealth building in the city of Detroit, what that adds up to. Because most people, the generational wealth is in their homes. And we can triple the taxes on the people causing their blight. And we can build a system where good investors can succeed without celebrating with tattoos. That's my goal. And if we do it right, this land value tax can spread beauty to every corner of the city. So we're asking for your help as we hit our Lansing legislators so that 10 years from now, there's a mayor standing here who's showing you nothing but development from one end of the city to the other. Thank you very much for your attention.